I built this fully automated AI day trading agent using this Lovable N8N. All you have to do is to select the stock you want to trade and your preferred risk level. Then the app automatically checks the latest prices for that specific stock and finds all the latest news that can affect its future price. After that, an AI agent processes all of this data and gives you both a short-term and a long-term trade recommendation, giving you the entry price, whether to long or short, how much leverage you should use, your stop loss level, and your take profit target, plus a fully detailed explanation of the trade, so you also can learn while using it, and all that in less than 10 seconds, making it faster and more accurate than the world's best traders. And in this video I'm going to show you how you can build this app step by step, and as a bonus, I will also walk you through how you can sell this app to day traders for thousands of dollars each. So if that sounds interesting, let's get started. Now the first thing that we have to do is to build the front-end interface of our app, and we're going to do that with Lovable. Specifically, I will come over here in the text box and type, I want to build a day trading app. The user should be able to input the ticker symbol of the stock that he wants to trade with in a simple text prompt, and also he should be able to specify the risk level he's willing to take. It can either be low, medium or high risk. Then the app is going to go and give him some suggestions about what trade he should make, but then specifically tell Lovable to don't try to build any of the backend functions of the app, because I will build all of them with N8N. You just focus on building a nice looking UI. It needs to be dark, modern, with nice sharp colors, just like this example. And now what I will do, guys, is I will go over to Google and search for nice looking UI, simply find one that I like. Let's say I really like this one, for example, and then all I have to do is to simply come over here and download it, and then come back over to Lovable, click on attach file, upload the file, and then I will come over here and click on enter. This way, Lovable has a visual example of exactly how I want the app to look like, making it way more likely to give me a good end result. But while Lovable is building the front-end interface of our app, let's go over to N8N and start building our backend. So what I did was go over to N8N and create a brand new workflow. And now the first thing that we have to do is to add in our first step, which is going to be none other than a webhook. And the reason I'm choosing to use a webhook and not any other trigger is because a webhook allows us to connect the front-end interface that we build with Lovable to the backend automation that we're going to build over in N8N. And to achieve that, all we have to do is to come over here in the HTTP method and change it from GET over to POST, since that is the type of request we're going to be sending over to Lovable in order for us to be able to send and receive data. So now all I have to do is to simply come over here and click on top of this URL in order to copy it in my clipboard, and then I need to come back over in my Lovable interface, where as you can see it also finished creating the front-end interface, which I do gotta admit does look very clean, guys, as you can see over here, and that is because we gave it this visual example over here. That's why Lovable knew exactly what style we were going for, and it was able to mimic it that well. But remember, we did not come back over to Lovable in order for us to see a front-end interface. What we came here to do is to connect it with a backend automation in N8N. So to do that, I will simply come over here and type, send all the data over to this webhook URL. And now what I will do is I will simply come over here and paste the webhook URL I just copied. And I will simply come over here and click on enter. And now Lovable is going to take this webhook URL and is going to embed it inside our app. So every time we come over here and we select the stock that we want to trade, for example, let's say we want to trade Apple, and we come over here and select our risk level, let's say we want it to be high, and we come over here and we click on analyze trade, it's going to send all this data back in our N8N interface, where we will actually be able to use it in order for us to generate the trade recommendation. And boom, as you can see, Lovable just finished embedding the webhook URL inside the app. So just to test it out, I will come over here and I will input the Apple stock symbol. And then let's say the risk you want to take is pretty high because we're doing high risk moves over here. And then before I come over here and click on analyze trade, I need to make sure my webhook is actually listening and expecting to receive data. And then I can come back over to Lovable and click on analyze trade. And boom, as you can see, the trade data was successfully sent over in our workflow. And if I come back over to N8N, we can see that we do have an output over here in our webhook, which means that we successfully managed to connect a front-end interface in Lovable with a backend automation that we built in N8N, which is exactly what we wanted. And if I actually scroll all the way down, we can see the exact parameters that we inputted, which is the Apple ticker and also the risk level, which is high. So let me actually come over here, pin this data, so don't have to rerun this if something goes wrong. And now it's time we actually go and fetch prices for this specific stock, so then we can take all those prices, feed them in our AI agent so it can go and give us some trade recommendations. Now how we're gonna be able to fetch these prices is by coming over here and searching for an HTTP request. And the reason we're using an HTTP request is because we're going to have to hit a third-party API, which is specifically going to be 12 Data, which is a service that allows us to get the latest prices from basically every stock that we want. And I will also leave a link for it in the description below, so you can simply click on it and sign up to it. It is also completely free to use as well. So once you do sign up, there are two things that you can actually do. You can either come over here to the top and click on API documentation, which is going to take you to 12 Data's API docs, which are very complicated if I'm gonna be honest. That's why what I did is I went over to ChatGPT, explained to it exactly what I want to do with 12 Data, and it basically gave me all the assets that I need to use. And just to make it simple for you, all you have to do is to come over here in the HTTP request and in the URL, simply type in this. You can pause the video, take a screenshot of it, give it over to ChatGPT and it's going to give you the exact text. And then what you have to do is to come over here and open the send query parameters. Then over here in the name, what you need to type in is symbol, exactly as I have typed it over here. And then for the value, simply come over here, take in the stock ticket that you got from your Lovable interface and simply drag and drop it over here. Now the next thing that you need to do is to simply come over here and add in another parameter, which is going to be called interval, exactly as I have typed it over here. And over here in the value, what you need to type in is 1 min, exactly as I typed it again over here. Since what this basically is the time frame for which we're going to get all the prices. So with this HTTP request, we're going to manage to retrieve all the 1 minute candles basically. Then we have another parameter that is going to be called output size, where we basically need to specify to our HTTP request exactly how many candles we want to retrieve. Let's say we want to retrieve 100, you can obviously put this at whatever number you want. And then the last query parameter that we need to add is going to be called API key, exactly as I have typed it over here. And then over here in the value, we need to input our 12 Data API key, which we can find from going over to our 12 Data dashboard, clicking on API keys, and then over here you will be able to see your secret key. So all you have to do is to simply come over here and reveal it, then simply come over here and copy it, and then come back over to 12 Data and simply paste it in over here. And now, if I actually come and execute the step, you guys will be able to see that I successfully managed to retrieve a batch of data, which is basically all the data for the last 100 1 minute candles for the Apple stock. And now, all we have to do is to simply make a similar HTTP request for different time frames as well, because we don't only want to have the 1 minute time frame, we also want to have the 15 minute, the 1 hour, and the 1 month, so we can also give some more long-term trade recommendations. But we don't have to rebuild the HTTP request from the start. All we have to do is to simply come over here and copy it, then simply come over here and paste it in, connect it to our webhook, and then simply open this up, come over here in the value, and we only have to change the interval. And from 1 minute, we'll simply make it 15 minutes. So if we come over here and we execute the step, you will see that we now retrieve all the 15 minute candles. And we're going to do exactly the same with the 1 hour as well, and also with the 1 month. So just to see how this actually is done, I will come over here, I will open this up, and then I will come over here again in the interval, and I will change this to 1/8, which is how we can represent the hour. And if I execute this, you will see that this executes successfully. So now we have the 1 hour candles as well. And now over here for the whole month, which if I'm gonna be honest, now that I'm thinking about it, 1 month is way too much to give us good trade recommendations. It would just give us investment advice if I'm gonna be honest. So let me actually do this for 1 day. I think it would be better. So I will actually come over here and type in 1 day. And if I actually come over here and execute this, you will see that we successfully managed to retrieve the information from the last 100 1-day candles as well. Now if this sounds a little bit complicated, don't worry, because underneath this video, I have linked my free school community where I will have the JSON file from this full automation that we're going to build in this video. So you can just join the community and you will be able to access the JSON file. So you can download it and then simply come over here, click on these 3 dots on the top right corner, click on import from file, upload the file, and you're going to have the whole automation populate for you automatically, exactly as you see it over here. But still, it's always good to understand how the automation was built, so let's move on with the rest of the video so I can show you the full building process and also some very nice N8N hacks that you can use to significantly speed up your process as well. Now that we have these 4 different time frames, what we need to do is to simply merge all of them together. So to do that, I will simply come over here and I will search for the merge node. And over here, all I need to do is to simply change the number of inputs over to 4, since we have 4 different HTTP requests that we need to merge. So I will simply put this somewhere over here in the middle, and I will simply connect all the HTTP requests to the merge node over here, which means that if I actually execute this, you will see all of these 4 requests get merged in this node over here, which is exactly what we wanted. But as you can see, we have 2 items now, which is not what we want, because we only want to have 1 item in order for us to be able to feed it in our AI agent and have our AI agent give us only 1 response, because if we feed it this data, it's going to give us 2 different responses, which is definitely something that we don't want to do. So to circumvent that, all we have to do is to simply come over here and add in an aggregate node, because what an aggregate node does is it basically takes all of these items that we have over here, which are just 2 in our example, and it's going to put them all into a single list if we select this option. So now as you can see that I selected this and I leave everything else just like it is, if I come over here and execute the step, it is going to give us an output of only 1 item, which basically includes all the data that we have retrieved, which is exactly what we wanted. So now we have successfully managed to build this section of our automation, which is the section where we retrieve all the relevant prices. So let me actually name it as well, so we know exactly what it is. But we need to do one more thing, which is to look at the latest news for this specific stock, because the news really affect stock prices, and we of course need to take them into account when we're creating our analysis. So to do that, we have to come back over here in our webhook and add in another HTTP request. But this time, we're not going to hit 12 data again, we're going to hit a different API that's specifically for news, which is going to be News API, which is also a completely free API that allows you to retrieve the latest news for any search query you might want. So all you have to do is to simply come over here and create an account, and then what you will need to do is to navigate over here and go over to News API documentation. Once you're over here, this might seem a little intimidating, but do not worry guys, this is actually super simple to navigate. All you have to do is to make sure you come over here and select searching for news articles. Once you do that, this CURL is going to open up over here, where as you can see, all you have to do is to simply come over here and copy it, then come back over to N8N, click on import CURL, paste in the snippet of code you just copied, and click on import. And this is going to populate the vast majority of the settings for you automatically. Now we still need to change some things, and the first thing that we need to change is over here the value, where we basically need to tell News API exactly what we want to search for. And since we actually want to search for the Apple stock, I will simply take in the ticker, which includes the Apple stock, and drag and drop it over here. So now News API has access to that. Then over here in the from, we basically need to specify the specific time frame that we want the search to happen from. That's why I will delete this. I will turn this into an expression and I will type in this snippet of code. Now you don't actually have to understand how I wrote this, but what this basically says is retrieve the latest news from the past 3 days. Again, you can take a screenshot of this, give it over to ChatGPT, and it's going to give you the text. Then over here sort by, we'll leave this on popularity, and then over here in the API key section, as you can see, we need to input our API key. But since we copied it from the docs, it is already populated for us automatically. Now if you do not have this populated for you automatically, all you have to do is to go back over to News API and simply click on Get API Key, and this is going to bring you over in the API key section, where you will be able to come over here, copy your API key, and then you can come back over to N8N and simply paste it in over here. But now, since we have configured everything that we needed in this node, all we have to do is to simply come over here and execute the step. And as you can see, we do have an output over here, which includes a bunch of articles, as you can see, from many different sources, specifically related to Apple stock news from the past 3 days, which is exactly what we wanted. So now what we need to do is to obviously feed all this information into an LLM model, so it can then analyze these articles and give us a sentiment, so we have a rough idea of what the news are saying. So now all we have to do is to simply come over here, click on the plus icon and search for an LLM chain. And the reason I'm using an LLM chain and not a simple LLM model is because I want to use an output parser, and you will see why in a bit. For now, let's come over here and change this from connect to chat trigger node to define below, which opens up the user message where we basically have to tell the LLM model exactly what we want it to do. So for this example, all I will say is, you're a highly intelligent and accurate sentiment analyzer, specializing in stock markets. Analyze the sentiment of the provided text using a two-part approach. First we want a short-term sentiment, and then we want a long-term sentiment. And I basically give it some instructions of how it should analyze both of the sentiments. I basically tell it can either be positive, neutral, or negative, and a bunch of other things. Now you can pause the video and read the full prompt if you want, or you can join the school community, download the template, and it's obviously going to include this full prompt over here. And now what we need to do over here at the end is to actually give it access to all of the articles. So to do that, I will simply take in the article schema over here, and I will drag and drop it over here. But if I do that, you can see that the LLM model cannot actually read this, and it only reads object. So to circumvent that, what we have to do is to simply come over here and copy this, open up the AI assistant, and tell it stringify this JSON. And now what the AI assistant is going to do is give us this snippet of code, which all we have to do is to simply copy and then come over here and simply paste it in. And as you can see, now the LLM model can actually read all the information that we managed to get from News API. That's why we actually needed to stringify this. And that's because every time you're using something that is an object, N8N cannot actually recognize that, because you first need to stringify it to basically tell N8N to read it exactly in the form that it is. That's a very basic explanation of it, but I think you get the point. You basically need to stringify it. So now all we have to do is to simply come over here and close this off, and then come over here and add in our LLM model. Now for the model, I will personally choose to go with OpenAI. You can obviously go with any LLM model that you want, and then I will come over here and select my OpenAI credentials. Now if you do not have credentials, all you have to do is to simply come over here and click on create new credential, and then you simply need to input your API key, which you're going to find in platform/OpenAI/API keys, which I will leave a link for in the description below as well. And then all you have to do is to come over here and click on create new secret key, simply give a name to your API key. I will name it my key, for example, and then come over here and click on create secret key, and boom, this is your brand new API key. So all you have to do is to simply come over here and copy it, and then come back over to N8N, simply paste it in over here and click on save. And boom, as you can see, my credentials were successfully created. So now all I have to do is to simply close this off, and I can come over here and select my OpenAI credentials. For the model, I will leave this on GPT 4.1 mini. I would advise you to use a similar fast model, because if you use a slow one, since this LM chain has access to a lot of information, it might actually time out. So make sure you use GPT 4.1 mini or any other model that is actually very fast. The last thing that we need to do is to come over here and enable the required specific output format. Why we're doing that? That is because we want to use an output parser, and specifically a structured output parser. This is the part of the automation when everyone starts losing their mind. They're like, oh my god, this is code, I don't know how to code. Don't worry guys, you will not have to write any code yourself. All you have to do is simply delete this short snippet of code that already exists and type in this. Now if you're wondering how I came up with this, I basically went over to ChatGPT, explained to it exactly what I want my LLM to output, which is just a short-term analysis and a long-term analysis, and it gave me this short snippet of code. I just copied it and pasted it over here, which means that we're done with our basic LLM chain, and we can actually run it and see the result that it's going to give us. And boom, as you can see, it just finished running, and it also looked inside the output parser. So now if I actually open this up, we can see that we do have a short-term sentiment over here and a long-term sentiment, exactly as we wanted. And that's why we used the output parser, because if we hadn't used it, it would just give us a big block of text that would basically include both of the sentiments in one, and we wouldn't be able to use it very easily on the next node that we're going to create. So now we're also done with the part which is retrieving the news. So let me actually come over here and add in a node so we know exactly what this is. And now that we have prices and also the news, what we need to do is to combine both of these two things and give them both in an AI agent, so you can take the prices and the new sentiments and then create a detailed analysis and give us suggestions about what trade we should make. So to do that, we first need to come over here, click on the plus icon, and we need to search for a merge node again. And this time we're going to leave the number of inputs to 2. And we're doing that, guys, because as you can see, we have two different branches of our automation, and we do need to merge them together in order for us to be able to give only one input in our AI agent, because if we do not do that, we will not be able to give both inputs into our AI agent. So now, if I actually come over here and execute this, you will see they are both going to be merged over in this branch over here, which is exactly what we wanted. But again, we have two items right now, which is not what we want, because if we give this again to our AI agent, this is going to give us two separate responses. So to circumvent that, we're basically going to do exactly the same thing that we did over here. We'll simply come, add in a simple aggregate node, turn this into all item into a single list, and then if we execute the step, you can see that we will only have one item that basically includes all of the data from the prices and also the sentiment analysis that we did over here. And now it's time we actually go and create our AI agent. So to do that, I'll simply come over here, select AI, and then I will come over here and select AI agent. Now the first thing that we need to do is to change this from connect to chat trigger node to define below, which opens up the user message where we basically need to tell our AI agent exactly what we want it to do. Which for this example, I will come over here and type a pretty long prompt, which is going to be this. This is for, and now what we need to do is to come over here in our initial webhook, scroll all the way down, and then take in the stock ticker that we inputted inside our Lovable interface and drag and drop it over here. So our AI agent knows exactly for which stock these recommendations are going to be for. Then we say this is the analysis that I got from scraping the articles. Now we need to come over here, close the webhook, open up our aggregate node over here, where we have the short-term analysis that we got and the long-term analysis. So let me actually take this, drag and drop it over here, and let me say short-term analysis, and underneath that we will obviously give the long-term analysis, which is going to be over here. So let me take this and drag and drop this over here. So now our AI agent has access to that. Then what we're saying is, here is all the technical data, which means that we need to come back over in our aggregate node, but this time we need to use the data 0 object, which includes all the technical data that we have gotten from the prices. Maybe I should also type in prices over here, which explains it a little bit better. So now I will simply come over here, take in the data object and drag and drop it over here. But as you can see again, the agent only sees an object. I think you already know the drill by now. All we have to do is to simply copy this, open up the AI assistant, paste it in and say stringify this as well. And boom, it just stringified. So all we have to do is to simply come over here and copy it. And then I will come over here, delete this, paste this in, and now the AI agent has access to all of this data as well. Then I say this is a JSON array, then I explain to it exactly what the data that it says is. I basically tell it it's the 1 minute candles, 15 minutes, 1 hour and 1 day. Then I basically tell it exactly what each one of these is, which the first one is open time, then open, the high, the low, close. You can pause the video, read the full prompt if you want. And then I also tell it that this is the risk level that I'm willing to take. And what we need to do is to go back again in our webhook, scroll all the way down to where we have inputted the risk level that we are willing to take initially in our Lovable interface, and then take it and drag and drop it over here. So now the AI agent also knows how much risk we want to take with this specific trade. Then I simply tell it, please perform the following steps. Group the data, short term, medium term, and long-term data. Then I tell it to give me a short-term analysis. I tell it exactly which candles to use, which indicators, and how it should basically create it. Then I tell it a long-term analysis, basically doing the same thing, but this time for the long-term analysis. Then I tell it to give me some rationale, some lagging indicators, and a sentiment analysis as well. And then I simply give it an output example, so it knows exactly what it needs to output me. Now no, this is a long prompt. You can pause the video and read it if you want. And again, this prompt is going to be included in the JSON that I have inside the free school community. So all you have to do is to simply join, download it, and this prompt is going to be included inside the file. So now we can actually come over here and close this off, and it's time we go and add in our LLM model. Now for this example, again, I will choose to use OpenAI. You can obviously select any model you want, but again, I would advise you to use a very fast model, even more so this time, because we've given the AI agent so much data. And if we do not use a fast model, you will say that it's going to time out. So make sure you use a model similar to GPT 4.1 mini. So now we'll simply close this off. Now we'll also come over here in the tools and give it access to the think tool, because what the think tool does is it tells the AI agent to pause, take a moment, and rethink of the response that it was going to give us, which indeed makes it give us a better end result. That's why I think every time you're building an AI agent, you should be using this tool, if I'm gonna be honest. And now we need to do one last thing and we will be done with our AI agent. And I think you already know the drill by now, because we will simply open up our AI agent, and you might have guessed it, we're going to use an output parser again. So make sure you actually come over here and enable the required specific output format, which opens up this brand new option over here, which is an output parser, and we will again come over here and use a structure output parser. I will simply come and delete this short snippet of code, and I will type in this. Now, I know this might seem a little intimidating, but how I came up with this is I basically went over to ChatGPT, told it exactly what I want the AI agent to output me, and it gave me this snippet of code, which is basically just copied and pasted. And again, this is going to be included inside the JSON file in the community. So now we can simply close this off, and it's time we actually execute our AI agent and see the trade recommendations that is going to give us. So let me come over here and execute this. And as you can see, it is running right now. It is using the think tool, and it just used the structure output parser, and it finished executing, which means that if we open it up, we should be able to see all the information that we want. And as you can see, we have a short-term trade recommendation, which is to buy. Over here, we have the low, the high, some nodes, our stop loss level, our take profit, and also our rationale. Why are we taking this trade, and the sentiment analysis, and the same exact thing for long term, which is again to buy, the low, the high, etc., and also some rationale, which looks very good and is exactly what we wanted. But right now, we simply have this amazing response, but it is inside N8N, which means that it's completely useless to us because the person that is using the app cannot actually see it. So we need to take this response and send it back over in a Lovable interface so the actual person that is using the app can actually see it and then go and perform that trade. So to do that, we simply have to come over here and search for a respond to webhook node, because that is how we're going to be able to send the response back in our Lovable interface. And over here in the respond with, we need to come over here and change this from first incoming item to all incoming items, since we want to send all this information back in our Lovable interface. And then, before we're able to execute this, we also need to come back over here in our initial webhook that we have created, open it up, and change the respond parameter from immediately to using a respond to webhook node. Because if we do not make this change, the respond to webhook node is not going to work. So make sure you actually don't forget to make this change, because almost every time I'm building an automation, I personally forget it and I always get an error. So make sure you don't make the same mistake. And once you do that, then you could come over here and execute the respond to webhook. But if I do that right now, you guys will be able to see that it did execute successfully. And if I open this up, we can see that we do have an output over here exactly as we wanted. But if I come back over in my Lovable interface, I cannot see anything over here, and I see no response being displayed. And that is not because we did something wrong with N8N, neither did we do something wrong with Lovable. That is simply because we did not tell Lovable that it needs to expect to receive this data from the webhook URL. So to do that, we simply have to come over here in the Ask Lovable tab and tell it, make sure you expect to receive a response from the webhook URL, and you actually create a section where you can display it. And it would also be useful if we actually gave it access to this response over here, so it knows exactly what sections it needs to go and create. Because remember, it needs to create a short-term section, then also to display this and this, etc. And it's always good to give it an example so you can go and do it with less errors. That's why I basically copy and pasted the full response, and I will simply come over here and send this over. And boom, Lovable just finished making the changes, and I actually went back over to N8N and rerun the respond to webhook. And if I scroll down now, we can see that we do have the response inside our Lovable interface. We can see the entry range, the take profit, the stop loss level, some nodes, some primary signals, the sentiment analysis, and also a summary of the trade. And again, this is a pretty high risk level trade, since that is the amount of risk that we chose to take. And we also can see the same exact things, but this time for the long-term trade, as you can see over here. So that's how you can build an AI trading recommendations app. And now it's time I show you how I would personally go about selling an app like this to day traders, which is by joining different day trading communities. They can either be on School, they can be on Reddit, they can be on Facebook, they can be wherever you want, and simply letting people know about your app. So how to personally do this is I would come over here, search for day trading, for example, and as you can see, over here we can see a bunch of day trading communities, which some of them are free, that have thousands of members inside them. So all you would have to do is to simply come over here, click on top of a community, for example, let's say the Trading Academy, then simply join that group, make some posts in the group giving value, and then you can also mention that you have built an app that gives the user automatic trade recommendations using AI. And if you have actually given value to that community, people are likely to engage with it, and they're also likely to go and check it out. And if they feel like it would help them when they're day trading, which there is no reason for why it wouldn't, then they can reach out to you or you can reach out to them and actually strike a deal so you can either sell them the app or even rent them the app for a monthly fee. So that is how I would personally go about selling an app like this. Obviously there are multiple ways you can sell it. I have shown other ways in some of my other videos, but I think that's a pretty damn good one, especially for targeting day traders, since they're not in the traditional industry and you can really go and find their email addresses from a platform like Apollo, for example. Now if you want access to the template for this full automation and also to all the lovable prompts that I use to build this very nice looking front-end interface, you can click the link in my description and come and join my brand new free school community where I'm going to include all of these assets over here in the assets tab inside the classroom. And if you want to take this a step even further and learn how you can actually sell AI automations and turn this hobby that you have into an actual business that makes you thousands of dollars per month, you can click the link in my description and come and check out my paid school community where inside the classroom I have a bunch of courses teaching you how to do exactly that. And I specifically show you how you can sell automations through Upwork, through cold email, and through building an audience on YouTube and on Instagram and selling your automations to these people. And fun fact, from my YouTube channel, I recently managed to land a very big project that is more than $10,000. And that happened simply because I managed to build an audience on YouTube, and then I managed to leverage that audience and that goodwill that I had in order for me to build them a system. And I also recently created my 100-day roadmap in which I told you exactly the steps that you need to take every single day in order for you to get your first high-paying AI and automation customer. And if you actually follow this program and you don't manage to land your first client, I'm going to give you all of your money back guarantee, simply because I'm this confident in the roadmap and I'm almost certain that if you follow it, it's almost impossible not to land your first paying client. And inside my paid school community, I also have exclusive N8N builds that I only showcase inside the community, and also I have my build a $1 million SaaS series in which I document the process of me building my own AI SaaS exclusively inside the community. So if you want access to all of this content, along with a community of 140 members that are interested in AI and are very serious about making money with it, you can click the top link in my description and come and check out my AI SaaS Builders community. So make sure you go and do that, and I will see you over there. But also YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this video in which I build a crypto trading app using just Lovable N8N. So make sure you go and watch that next, and I will see you over there.